This week on Crunch Week, we're talking about Snapchat's rumored $3 billion acquisition offer, the new Justin Bieber-backed Selfie app, and the resurgence in tech IPOs. Hey there, I'm Colleen Taylor.
Hey, I'm Josh Constine.
I'm Ryan Lawler.
And welcome to Crunch Week. It's been a couple of weeks off for our weekly show, so we have a ton of stuff to catch up on. And one of the biggest headlines of the week that seemed to get everybody's attention was this $3 billion offer that the Wall Street Journal reported that Snapchat had fielded and turned down from Facebook.
Yeah, so I think the big thing is that Facebook tried to clone Snapchat a while back with Poke. It failed. The app's basically going to be deprecated. But Snapchat, meanwhile, has just kept on growing. And the question is, is buying it the right move for Facebook? And at $3 billion, honestly, it might be, considering Facebook just reported in its last earnings call that it's losing some engagement from young teen users, which are the core audience of Snapchat.
I think that a lot of the buzz around this has been so many people on Twitter and elsewhere just kind of saying that Snapchat is so stupid for turning this down. This was reported by Doug McMillan and Evelyn Russley to be a $3 billion cash offer, like not even in stock, $3 billion in cash. And the nerve of these kids at Snapchat to turn something like that down.
Well, it's kind of smart because in Snapchat's last funding round, the two co-founders took $10 million off the table each. They basically pocketed that money. And what that meant was, instead of it being like, well, you either get $3 billion if you go to Facebook, or you might end up with nothing, instead they're like, well, we already have $10 million, and that's a pretty good fallback. And so I think that really bolstered them and emboldened them to go bigger and see if they could really turn Snapchat into its own huge tech giant and franchise of its own.
Yeah, what do you think, Lawler?
I think the other thing that everybody, and a few people have brought this up, that everybody forgets is that, this is there's this history of companies. Facebook turned down a huge offer, Twitter's turned down a huge offer, and sometimes it works out well, like in those two cases, and sometimes it doesn't work out at all. I mean, how many times has Foursquare had the opportunity to sell, and now, not necessarily that they're struggling, but there's some question of them finding their way.
And Groupon had that happen too. They turned down a huge acquisition offer from Google, and then everything went to hell.
Right. So I think, in the grand scheme, it's one of those things where it's difficult to walk away from that much money, right? But at the same time, if you're really committed to this idea that this could be one of the next major platforms, you kind of have to stick with it and not, just go for the quick money.
I think another point here, though, is that when we talk about the rumors, or it was pretty much confirmed that Zuckerberg turned down Yahoo and that Groupon turned down Google. I mean, these were all hundreds of millions of dollars. And I remember at the time that seemed absurd, like that Zuck turned down $200 million from Yahoo. He's crazy.
Well, it was $1 billion.
Well, it got bigger, right? Like at first in 2006 or something, it was like 200 million. He went back. It was all these things. It was never $3 billion. That is just so much money. But
it counts for
agree.
Inflation.
Yeah, I don't know, some kind of inflation. But I think it's cool to see these kids, really kids 23, 25 years old, who don't want to just go work for Zuckerberg, and they can't be bought right now, and nowadays there are a lot of companies that of course do field offers and then, don't sell, but for every one of those, there are so many startups that just seem to be built to be an acqui-hire. You go to some of these demo days and things, and all these startups just seem to be like they're doing a hiring presentation to kind of say, please Google acqui-hire me, please Facebook snap us up. They're a great 5-person smart team. So it's kind of cool to see these guys from Snapchat not being that way.
And honestly, you might, if I was the founders of Snapchat, I might think, part of the attraction of Snapchat is that it's not Facebook, that it's a younger company, and perhaps that joining them could actually curtail the growth and hurt the long-term potential of the company they're trying to build. So it's not just like, do you want the money or not, but it's like, if that acquisition, if that money hurts your ability to build this business that's become your life and your dream, then it makes more sense to turn down the offer.
We're all on the same page that this is a cool thing, but I think we're in the minority because so many people were saying, this is so stupid, but hey, we'll see what happens.
A lot of people just like money. They don't realize there's a thrill to running your own company.
That's true. What else is there this week? What else? Oh, new company.
Yeah, so Justin Bieber made one of his first big personal investments without the help of his manager, and it's in an app called Shots of Me. And what it is a selfie app. It's literally just an Instagram almost just for self-portraits that you take with the front-facing camera of your phone. And the idea is that there's actually no comments in the app, so you can't make fun of somebody else's face. The only thing you can do is like it, and that's supposed to sort of protect against cyberbullying. And the really right now, like selfies as a medium are blowing up, but they've been around for a really long time. We've been painting portraits of people and people's faces for a long time, and been taking portraits in the photography for a long time. But now with so many people having smartphones that have front-facing cameras, there's this big resurgence in this as a medium. And I think it's smart that there's somebody who's trying to capitalize on that. We already have that app called Frontback, which lets you take a front-facing photo of your face and then a forward-facing camera or another photo that's like of the context of what's around you. A lot of people are just hating on this like crazy because selfies are kind of vain. But
I think it's two things. I think it's selfies and Bieber.
And
it's
people
like two
hate
things
Bieber for really no reason. Like, okay, he's a pop musician, but like, is that a good enough reason to say that someone can't invest in something or that everything he does is dumb? And I don't agree. Honestly, some of his music's not that bad. But really, the app's premise is that pictures of dead objects are boring. Like if you look back at your old photos in your phone or on your computer and you look at all those landscapes and those artful shots of cities or pictures of your lunch, if there's no people in them, a lot of times they look really boring. Whereas the ones that happen to have you in them and you get to see yourself grow up or you in a different phase of your life or friends of yours, like those are just way more interesting to look at. And I think, I've been using Shots of Me a bunch this week, and it's actually changed the way I think about photography in the sense that there's places where I'd be like, oh, I want to take a photo of the marquee of this theater, or I want to take a photo of this funny Tyrannosaurus Rex sculpture, but like those dead objects just wouldn't be that interesting. But when I turn the camera around and I point it at myself and I take a photo with me and those things, suddenly I think that they're more compelling. Maybe I'm just a total narcissist, but honestly, I think other people are feeling that too, and I've heard it's not doing so badly.
No, is there room for both Shots of Me and Front Back in your phone? I mean, does one have to win here?
They serve different purposes, right? I mean, Frontback has, selfies and whatever you're looking at. So it has sort of that context of whatever you're doing. Whereas, Shots of Me is kind of you and whatever the thing is behind you. But I don't know. I think they serve different purposes.
No,
to be
I think
honest.
I think that there's probably, it's not like one or the other has to win, but I think one of them or one selfie app will probably gain dominance because these are photo sharing communities. The same way that Instagram worked is it sort of became the central place that people share photos, not just that they take photos or that they save them, but for sharing them. And so in terms of that being a community, those communities rely on sort of a network effect. They get better with the more people that are on them. So I think if one of them can really gain escape velocity and gain the ability to be the central selfie app, it's going to win. And Shots of Me has a big advantage because Justin Bieber is the backer of it, and he already has tweeted the link to it, and he has 47 million Twitter followers and 57 million Facebook fans. And that means if like a fraction of a percent of these people download the app, then it's already blown past Frontback, which was last reported to have 300,000 downloads total.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I question like how much celebrity endorsement really helps these apps. I think it can help market to a certain extent, but I mean, Justin Bieber was also on Vidi too. Look what happened to that app. You never hear about it anymore. So I think the short-term effect that one of these celebrity endorsements can have on an app is interesting, but at the same time, I don't know, maybe because he's invested, he's actually more likely to use it.
I like that it's a teen, oriented app or a young person oriented app that has taken a proactive kind of stance or has put things in place just to not allow bullying, because it's such a huge thing
There's
with
a ton of
teen
drama.
apps.
Yeah, there's a huge drama. Like on social media, if you look at any like 15-year-old kid on Twitter or Instagram even, where there's comments, or Facebook, it's like their comment reels are often like a bunch of immature kids with no filter, just like yelling at each other and making fun of each other. And that's a scary place to share a photo of your own face to.
Yeah, I agree. So cool. And last topic here, IPOs are back.
Everybody IPO.
Quick, everyone IPO.
So Twitter blew up with its IPO last week, and now it seems like, Zulily just priced and they just went public. We've got lots of reports of Box is,
Square.
trying to get bankers for IPO, Square,
Seamless,
Grubhub.
Redfin.
All of these companies, suddenly they're looking for bankers, and it all happened within days of, the IPO of Twitter. So I don't know, Josh, you wrote about this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so what we think is going on right now is basically people were worried that we might be at the top of some bubble, or that the market conditions might get a lot worse for raising huge rounds of money or going public, which is just another way to raise a lot of money for your company. And the fear is that if that market changes, if it's really frothy and easy to raise a lot of money now and IPOs are going well, but it changes, you want to get your money now. You want to get your money while you still can. And so I think that's why you see a lot of these companies trying to accelerate their road to IPO, or they're trying to raise big rounds right now, because it might be their last chance. Because maybe you raised 6 months ago and you don't actually need more money. You have plenty of money. It's not like you're coming to the end of your rope, but instead they're just stockpiling cash. That way, if it turns into a cold winter for raising money, then they'll be set. They'll have their stockpile.
it's really hard to do that if it's 2008 or if it's 2001. So yeah, get your money now.
Yeah, but there's also something a little weird about that, because that's what kind of was the beginning of the end, or just kind of the big problem with Bubble 1.0, is that all these companies went public, and then it wasn't just, venture capital investors and angel investors and accredited folks that were losing their shirt. It was, regular
Retail
people
investors,
who had, money in the stock market through their 401k, or had bought some things, on the stock market. So hopefully this is not the beginning of some cold winter or something. And also, a lot of these companies have been a lot more proven before they've gone public. They've been around for a really long time. They're not just, flash in the pan kind of companies.
Those are the ones coming to IPO, but the ones raising big rounds like Snapchat and Pinterest, neither of them have proven they can make a lot of money.
It's
and
true.
Pinterest has a pretty clear road to it, because there's a lot of intent of people interested in buying things on Pinterest, so you could imagine the ads would perform very well. But Snapchat is kind of thrives on it being an adless experience, and so they could maybe have brands pay to send you direct messages, to send you snaps, but that might just feel really, really spammy, and you might delete the app because of it. Or they could have little branded stories that you could scroll to in your friend list and watch little videos from brands that don't necessarily ping you when they come in, but they're there for you to watch. But that might just be too subtle to ever make enough money to be worth $3 billion. But honestly, I'm pretty optimistic about both of those companies.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, time will tell. We'll see. And that's about it for this week. That's all the time we have. So thank you for watching, and check back in next week.